Hi there everyone, today we are going to be taking just a few minutes to talk about some of the most powerful typhoons in recent history, and one of the main reasons behind it is actually we've been talking about global warming lately and how storms are becoming stronger and stronger. That may be the case in many basins, but actually I was taking a look at some of the most recent strongest storms in the Western Pacific. Most strongest in the top 5 are mainly in the 60s and 70s. So let's actually bring this up here, and starting with number 5, it's actually a three-way tie. We're starting with Super Typhoon Vanessa, or Remming, which actually blew up in just south of Guam, pulled off towards the west, got down to a pressure of 880 millibars. An absolutely intense storm system, winds right around 220 kilometers per hour with the system, but the good news, it did not touch any land masses. That was in 1984. The next one on the list is actually Typhoon Rita, which developed there in 1978. If you are in the Philippines and you're around in 1978, I am sure you remember this one. It got down to 880 millibars as well, 220 kilometers per hour. That's tied as well for number 5. But this one hit land, and it did cause extensive damage across the Philippines and a significant loss of life as it pushed overhead and dwindled out in the South China Sea. But it did get down to that very deep pressure. Then we talk about the other number 5 spot, which was actually Typhoon Kit, which did not hit land as well, and really formed in 1966 when reconnaissance aircraft was in its infancy. So many people question if this one really was down to the 880 millibar level, but nonetheless, it is up there with the top 5. Now, let's take a look at number 4, though. Number 4 is actually Typhoon Ida, which formed in 1958, and if we're going to talk about the deaths associated with the top 5 strongest storms in recorded history in the Western Pacific Basin, it actually is by far the deadliest. Many of them actually just stayed offshore, but Typhoon Ida hit Honshu, caused about 1,900 at least recorded mudslides, at least 1,200 deaths as it dropped down to pressure right around 877 millibars here in 1958, and caused damage upwards equivalent about 50 million US dollars in 1958 due to inflation much higher now. But really, it reached its strongest point just towards the south of Honshu, and probably would have been a lot worse if it did maintain that intensity as it pushed off towards the north. Alright, so we're going to go down to number 3, which was actually June, Super Typhoon June, or Rosing. It formed in 1975, and once again, just like some of the other storms, this one did not touch shore. It actually got down to 875 HPA, but it stayed out over the water throughout its duration of its lifetime. And just a few years before that, we actually had our Super Typhoon Nor, and there in 1973, that got down to 875 HPA, hit the northern portions of the Philippines. At least about 18 fatalities recorded with that one, but it was there as well in the 70s, just like June prior to it, or 2 years after that, actually. And then number 1, the one that you definitely everybody knows because it is the strongest storm recorded in history, at least on the face of the earth, and at least in recorded history in 1979 by reconnaissance aircraft just towards the west of Guam is where the pressure was recorded, down to 870 HPA. Winds in the storm were gusting up to 305 kilometers per hour. Thankfully, it did not hit any land masses while it was at that intensity. It did gradually weaken, and it did cause widespread damage actually across Japan as it started to loop back off towards the north. But the strongest pressure, thankfully, was farther down towards the south. And with Typhoon Tip, there was actually 86 fatalities recorded, over 100 injured as well, all across much of Japan here, as it did blow overhead, gradually weakened, eventually moving off towards the north, but definitely going down as the strongest storm in history. Really, a lot of these were actually taken by reconnaissance aircraft, which is no longer available for the Western Pacific every now and then, but the GTWC doesn't even put nothing out there. JMA doesn't fly anything as well. They really use the Dvorak scale to grade if storms get that strong. So, in recent history, they may have been stronger, but there wasn't any confirmation out there for that. Just to put it in perspective, the strongest storm in the Atlantic Basin, which was Hurricane Wilma, got down to 882 HPA. That is not even the same as any in the top 5, which started at 880 HPA for our typhoons out here. So really, storms in the Western Pacific definitely some of the strongest storms on Earth. But that's all for right now, though. Thanks for watching this quick little update on the top 5 strongest storms in the Western Pacific. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can always post them in the comment box below. And as always, though, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.